today's topic for our consideration is Nigeria and the Biafra agitation. This is a first in a three-part public discussion series on the Biafra agitation. The objective of this series is to identify the root causes of the agitation and seek pragmatic solutions to diffuse the tension in a lasting and sustainable manner. The first part, which is today's event, is a series set up as a cross-generational dialogue across the sub-nationalities in Nigeria, while striving for gender balance. The second part of the series would involve strong voices from across Nigeria who will seek a deeper understanding of the issues, both the issues that divide them and those that we hope unite them. And we hope they will offer pragmatic and well-considered solutions to the Biafran and other agitations across Nigeria. The third part of the series will provide a forum for top members of the various agitation groups to present their case and outline their most pragmatic solutions to the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Next year hopes that at the end of these three series, government and other parties in the dialogue would have gained a deeper understanding of the issues and would have received a suite of pragmatic solutions that could help diffuse the tension and build a more united Nigeria. The overriding intention of this event, however, is to continue to promote the idea of the active citizen. People like many of you gathered here today who keep challenging the way things are currently happening, especially if they are not happening in the best way, or if they are not happening in the best interest of the majority of the people of the country. The kind of people who challenge the systems and structures of governance so that they work better for them and their communities and their country. The people who challenge other citizens to be better citizens and challenge existing mechanisms and structures to be more inclusive, fair, and open. Active citizens feel an obligation to question, debate, and change established systems and structures which reproduce patterns of injustice over time in order to solve social problems and improve society. And I hope you will all count yourselves, at least most of you, as active citizens. And that is why I'm especially pleased to welcome all of you here today. Nation building is a continuous process. The generation of Chief Obasanjo and Chief Okeke will continue to debate and argue and contribute to the building of a better Nigeria. And I guarantee you this, although I'm not a preacher or a prophet, that the generation of the children of the younger members of the panel today will continue the same debates and the same discussions, sometimes arguments, and sometimes they will find reason to laugh. With all this in mind, I would like to present to you today's panel. First of all, I would like to introduce the panelist who is already seated to my right. And I will go in the order in which they are already seated. Chief Simon Okeke, OFR, was the former chairman of the Police Service Commission. Chief Okeke says of himself, and I quote, "I have always spoken aloud." And one of such loud pronouncements came towards the end of last year, when he said the following, and I quote, "The war is over. We have all integrated into Nigeria. There was a doctrine of no victor, no vanquished. So the Nigerian experiment has been going on. I have served as the PSC chairman, and even after that, I have been in pursuit of progress in Nigeria, starting with peace and progress in Igbo land. I think we should stay together as a country, but issues of Igbo marginalization and victimization are real. They are there, and they are very glaring, and they must be addressed, but not without violence and incessant protests. Permit me, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, to invite to rise to the high platform the next member of this panel, Chido Onuma, and you can come up as I introduce you. Trained as a journalist at the University of Western Ontario, Canada. He is the director of the African Center of Media and Information Literacy. He was director of the Africa program at Pano Institute in Washington, D.C., and assistant editor of the Third World Network's African Agenda magazine. His latest essay on Biafra is titled, "We Are All Biafran." He says of himself, "I am a child of Biafra. I was born on the eve of the avoidable and internecine civil war. My father fought in the war on the side of Biafra. I have sat through many hours of interviews to get a glimpse from his personal experience of what really happened." The next member of our panel is Kadaria Ahmed. Kadaria works at Reinvent Media Limited, and she's the host of Straight Talk with Kadaria, the hard-hitting news and current affairs program on Channels TV. She was the editor of the multiple award-winning newspaper and website Next and 234next.com. Kadaria has written about the deep-rooted problems in our country that would not go away. And she says that these problems include weak leadership, incompetent government, a polarized society, and a political class at odds with ordinary citizens, which has lost its moral compass and whose chief concern now is self-preservation. The next member of the panel is Tolu Ogunlesi. Tolu is a journalist, a blogger, a newspaper columnist. He writes for a number of leading international and national media, including the Financial Times, CNN.com, The Independent, Al Jazeera, the London Guardian, and the Huffington Post, Why Niger, and others. Mr. Ogunlesi has written about the Nigerian government's extraordinary ability to complicate crises, and I quote, "with its own special brand of nonchalance, an attitude to assume that every problem is the creation of an opposition group seeking to undermine the government." Perhaps this might explain the difficulty in getting the federal government officially to engage with today's topic with anything beyond rumbustious and belligerent warnings by various apparatuses of the federal government. The moderator of today's event is Patrick Okibo III. Patrick is the principal partner at Next Year Advisory, a public sector advisory firm, and convener of Development Discourse. So he is our host today. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, needs no introduction. But for anybody who has landed from Mars, I want to say the following. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo was also the first military ruler in Africa to hand over power to a civilian government, having served as Nigeria's military ruler from 1976 to 1979. He handed over to Shehu Shagari, and later, as a civilian, was elected and served as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria between 1999 and 2007. Just 18 years ago, following his release from prison, through what he described in his book as the sudden, quiet, and effortless removal of Abacha, and I think he attributed it to God, Chief Obasanjo walked out to a Nigeria that looked thus. He writes in his book that the situation was that Nigeria was drifting to disintegration with the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra in the southeast, militancy and Ebesu in the Niger Delta, Odua People's Congress in the southwest, and the emergence of Arewa People's Congress in the north. All of them were mostly jobless youths, covertly supported by political and non-political activists. This was in 1998, so what has changed in the meantime, if anything, in the character and the intensity of the present signs of drift of our country, to what one might term a growing apart of some constrained parts of Nigeria? We haven't got long to wait, and I will invite, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, to kick things off for today's event with his keynote speech.
am very cautious getting myself into any debate or conversation concerning the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOP, its many hydra-form iterations and its resurgent Biafra agitation. I've taken this position because I suspected that the agitation was born in error and ignorance, and the personal frustration of many of the frontline demagogues of this new nightmare and their supporters and sympathizers. I also believe that at best, the agitation was at regional level, and that no inadvertent helping hand should be lent to it related to national. I first spoke on this a few vague words of warning. That today at this platform, afforded me by the Yaradua Center and next year's development discourse under Patrick Okigo, we will proceed to the task at hand, a conversation on this new subject. What are the errors, the ignorance, and the frustration? And what should be done about them? Why have the agitations garnered such national attention in the last few months? Let me deal with the not so distant past, the last presidential elections. There were errors of perception and understanding and knowledge. Muhammadu Buhari, represented by his political detractors and perceived by many honest Nigerians, fooled by this dangerous rhetoric as a rabid Muslim fundamentalist who was secretly behind Boko Haram and who, on coming to power, would Islamize the whole of Nigeria. I call this the Buhari bookie. The seemingly stern and starchy appearance of Buhari and his not being seen with any known close friend in the southeast outside his military colleagues aided the misperception. But as money showed today, what Nigerians and the world have seen of President Buhari in the first 8 months of his presidency shows him far from being a jihadist. From my personal experience, no Nigerian leader can embark on a mission of proselytization and hope to succeed. The same goes for leaders with ethnic, tribal, sectional, and or regional agendas against the overall national interest. On the other side, there was also the error of perception of President Jonathan. I have before now said a few of what I know and what determined my position in the contest between Buhari and Jonathan. I do not intend to say any more, except that the findings and revelations that have come out so far have not proved me wrong. I would like to believe that these two misreadings and misperceptions led substantially to the pattern of voting in the southeast in the last presidential election. Voting along regional lines or voting en bloc against or for a candidate can be regarded as normal and should not by itself be a problem. But you must hold with apprehension the fear that led to such voting and the subsequent contribution to this resurgence of protest. What happened in the Southeast was not too different from what happened in the Southwest in 1999. It was a similar experience in 1999 when the Southwest did not vote for me because I did not emerge from the storm of correct in quote, political stock in Yoruba land. And I was perceived to be a likely stooge of those who supported me from outside the Southwest, particularly from the North. They were proved wrong in the first few years of my presidency. And in the following election, I got as much support from Southwest as I got from anywhere else. The solution to the situation in the Southeast is first, for leaders and elders in the Southeast to caution realism and sanity among the youth, and for the president to prove that Nigeria is his constituency. He should act like God, who gives rain to the good and bad, the just and the unjust, in the world equally, as the world belongs to God in totality. The agitators also suffer from the error of misreading the history of Nigeria, or not reading it at all. There is no going back in our history. Going back from where we are will be at an unbearable cost. I will come back to this issue momentarily. This brings me to what I term as ignorance as part of the cause of the agitation. The Nigerian Civil War ended 46 years ago. As a participant in that war, and as one used by God to bring the war to a main and brotherly end in the field, I have said on many occasions that I have fought one civil war too many in Nigeria. In the end, both sides were losers. And if there was any winner, both sides are winners. No right-thinking person who has experienced the horror of war will ever agitate for more. Most wars stem from real and perceived injustices and dissatisfaction, and invariably wars emanate from a desire to correct or redress such situations. Our civil war was not any different. But at the end of almost all wars, Georgia takes over from the boom and devastation of the gun. That is the path of wisdom, prudence, and political sagacity. If the elders abdicate their responsibility to the immaturity, inadequate experience, unrealistic idealism, and the frustration of the young, it will no doubt lead to disaster. Let me quote from my introduction to the 2015 edition of my book on the Nigerian Civil War, My Command, and I quote, "There is not much to say that has not already been said. As this book is presented to a new generation of readers, I only ask that they read it, compare with other stories that have been told, whether in response to the first publication of this book or not, and reach the conclusion about the war that all well-meaning Nigerians must reach: never again." End of quotation. Errors mixed with ignorance will lead to wrong decisions and wrong actions, which will exacerbate an already uncertain and unsteady situation. Great apprehension sets in to make the situation worse. This is particularly true for the youth who, with or without education, have no employment and look on the future with despair and uncertainty. They become desperate, frustrated, and they try to visit their frustration and anger on anything within their reach. That, to me, substantially explains the misfortune of most of the resurgent Biafra agitators. They need to be understood because lack of understanding with its appropriate remedy will drive them further into the hands of demagogues and opportunists who will thrive from their desperation and frustration, turning it into criminality and extremism against their parents, their community leaders and elders, regional leaders and elders, and against national unity, ethos, and values. Without local and national solution to their bruised sense in disappointment and anger, they will carry their menace beyond their homes, communities, and region, and will nationalize and even internationalize the crisis, putting a different twist to it. There are always sympathetic do-gooders out there who will feed and fuel their agitation, baseless as it may be. Our solution, which must be at the family, community, local, regional, and national levels, must be embarked upon separately and collectively. Biafra as a secession issue is dead, and nobody should follow that way. It can again only lead to disaster. But I see this resurgent Biafra agitation not for secession or creation of an independent entity from Nigeria, but as a cry for attention, amelioration, and improvement of socio-economic conditions and situation, especially of the youth in Nigeria in general, but in the Southeast in particular. A call by the youth of that region for transformation. I see it as a platform rather than a cause. The solution lies in education, awareness raising, youth acquisition of skill, youth empowerment, and youth employment. By education, I imply more than basic education or literacy and academic attainment. Knowing enough about ourselves in this country, our different group history, our national history, culture, characteristics, and what each group added to the whole, and what each group can still contribute to the whole. Nigeria is what it is because each group is a vital and dynamic part of the whole, the indissoluble whole as prescribed by our Constitution. In my part of the world, when a young person behaves uncharacteristically, people ask, are there no elders in your family? It means that he or she has not been given an education and an awareness that is more than school education. Let us speak well of ourselves, collectively and cohesively among ourselves. It is also part of the way to national unity and future greatness of our country. This is essentially a family, community, state, and national responsibility. At all levels, we must neither shirk nor abdicate our responsibilities in this regard. We must not succumb to fear, intimidation, or threats and name-calling. Happily enough, judging by the information I received on the meeting of serious, authentic, and responsible Igbo stakeholders, elders, and leaders on December 17th, 2015, it is gratifying and reassuring that these leaders and others like them saw no sense nor future for the resuscitation of Biafra, but but expressed concern for socio-economic situation, which have been progressively going down in the past 5 years in the country generally and particularly in the southeast, culminating in observable grinding poverty and gross infrastructural decay and dereliction. The responsibility of correcting and updating the youth on the Nigerian political history should not be left in the hands of the elders and leaders of the Southeast alone, but there must be consultation, mutual support, and solidarity among our leaders and elders nationwide to ensure national integrity and to make our national unity inviolate. Therefore finds work for idle hands and fills empty minds. There is even some suspicion that the agitators embarked on the act in order to extort money from outsiders and to also extract financial support from the government. The commercialization and exploitation of Biafra agitation is obscene to the point of criminal fraudulence. Or how do you explain the issuance of the so-called Biafran passport that takes anyone to nowhere and for which unwary people are being charged exorbitant prices? We must neither allow evil to find work for our youth, nor to fill their unoccupied minds with satanic ideas, thoughts, decisions, and actions. The way to achieve this is to encourage entrepreneurship and job creation at the community, state, and national level. Conducive environment and conditions must be created for promotion of private sector entrepreneurs and investors, both local and foreign, to make our different areas as irresistible for investment, job creation, and wealth generation destinations as possible. Again, innovation must come into our thinking and action in the areas of employment generation and wealth creation. In addition to the traditional ways of doing things, let us also think and act out of the box. Innovation is not hard to be brought about in this digital age and times. Not too long ago in the Southwest, there was a problem of Odua People's Congress, OPC, which was created to frustrate Abacha's self-perpetuation ambition. So were the Egbesu and Masop initially. Later, Arewa People's Congress, APC, joined them. Different approaches, political, economic, and social, were devised to deal with their menace when OPC became a Frankenstein. One of such approaches that worked so well was to encourage them to form vigilante, guards, and protection groups, formally and legally. They were hired and paid, thereby leaving the menace perpetrated through informality to the good and gainful employment through the formal. The emerging economic situation at that time also helped. The emerging economic situation at that time also helped. Biafra agitation has also been regarded as an industry for those who are looking for money by hook or by crook, particularly from gullible sympathizers abroad. Some leaders are seen as likely standing behind the smoke screen as a means of extracting more concession from the government in the center. That by itself may not be an unusual strategy. but it must not be carried too far. Above all things, good governance at all levels is the key solution. The welfare and well-being of the citizenry with equity, justice, and fairness must be the main preoccupation of government at all levels. It must also be the preoccupation of the family and the community, and all hands must be on deck. Measured toleration, not inimical to security, unity, and corporate existence of Nigeria, is a mark of both leadership and good governance. I cannot end without reiterating that Biafra agitation as a means of calling for cessation or severance from Nigeria is a hopeless and futile exercise on which nobody in seriousness should embark. However, I see it as a symbol of desperation, despair, and frustration of the youth being expressed by in the country. The Biafra, never again. And we must avoid the coalition of the unwilling but forced by circumstances. Nigeria cannot afford to go from Boko Haram insurgency to any other insurgency under any name or guise. And on no account should we wittingly or unwittingly allow this to happen again. Youth education, welfare, well-being, empowerment, and employment forever must be our collective duty, obligation, and responsibility. Youth have no right, in their expression of desperation and frustration, to embark on wanton and wicked acts of destruction of properties and wares of ordinary men and women in the market, to make the situation even worse for these poor and helpless citizens. Bitterness, anger, destruction, and wickedness can only worsen an already bad socio-economic situation. That will be unwise. Let us ventilate, learn, and be informed without resorting to violence, bitterness, animosity, and destruction. Let us hold on together to our constitutionally indissoluble Nigeria, and together, through dialogue, debate, and discussion, we can correct what is wrong and make our country what God has created it to be: a land flowing with milk and honey, a leader among the black race, and one of the leading nations of the world. Greatness is in us, potentially. Let us join hands to actualize it.
On the fact that they believe that the southeast or the former eastern part of Nigeria has been systematically marginalized by successive governments since the end of the Civil War. And that appears to be the root cause of the agitation, and not whether it is borne by people who are seeking commercial interest or criminals, but the fact that people sincerely believe that the region has been systematically marginalized by the Nigerian government. I wonder how you get to respond to that.
Patrick, I still very strongly hold to my view that the agitation is born out of error, out of misperception, misreading, out of ignorance, and out of lack of understanding of Nigerian history and Nigerian situation. Now, you talk of persistent marginalization. I want you or anybody to give me 3 concrete areas where the Southeast has been marginalized since the end of the Civil War? Give me 3, and I will give you the answer to them. Because you just saying, well, generally, you have been marginalized. I can say that I've been marginalized. Now, but give me 3 specific areas, and I will give you 3 areas where I have been told that the Southeast have been marginalized, and I will give you proof of lack of marginalization. Marginalization is in the imagination of people, not the reality. So give me 3, and I will give you that I will substantiate why this is not so. Give me 3.
In a recent essay that was published by Obi-Wakama, he listed a number of areas where the Southeast has been marginalized. 1, just before the Civil War, a place like Aba and Lagos were at par in terms of industrial development. Soon after the war, Governor Sam Mbakwe laid pipelines for gas that would turn Aba into an industrial layout. But later, in about 84, most of these pipelines were pulled out. And if you look at investment flow, foreign direct investment into Nigeria, 90% of them go to the greater Lagos area, which includes Ogun State, Lagos, etc. The singular reason for that is the gas pipeline that runs into Ogun State and Lagos. So if we pick that one as an example of where government has denied investment in the region, which has led to a deterioration of the region. Number 2,
well, let me answer that, because I don't want you to give too much so that you will not confuse people. The area of industrialization you have talked about, are they government projects? Of course not. Whether you are talking, there's no, I come from Ogun State, and I know what effort the government of Ogun State, including me, not the government, are saying to people, investors, come because, 1, of proximity to Lagos, 1, because Ogun State will give you land. Now, you cannot blame that on anybody. You can only blame that on the geographical situation that we find ourselves. Now, Lagos, and it doesn't matter what we may say about it, will remain the economic and the commercial capital of Nigeria for a long time to come. I don't say it will not, it cannot change, but it will remain so for a long time to come. And you are talking of gas. Now, the same gas you are talking about was the gas that is taken to build the power station very near Aba. What do we call that one? Alogi. All right? So if the gas that powers Alogi, the gas that powers Papa Lanto, the gas that powers, there's another one near Papa Lanto in Ondo State. What do you call it? Amatosho. Now, it's the same gas that you take to Alogi. So if people can tap onto gas to Papa Lanto for industry, gas to Amatosho for industry, they can tap to gas to Alogi for industry. So it's the same government that provides the facility or the ability for the gas to Papa Lanto to Amatosho that provides to Alogi. So you see, and then to say that because Aba was meant to be a thriving industrial area, which it still is. I was in Aba only less than 2 weeks ago. Aba is still more an industrial area than many other parts of Nigeria. Many. except because I in fact believe that Aba is more of an industrial area today than Kano.
Chido, I wonder if you have a response to that.
I do, and I'd like to thank you and thank the audience for this opportunity. Let me say fundamentally that I believe in the rights of people to self-determination. Having said that, I also want to say I do not believe in the fight for the actualization of Biafra. And I've written about my reasons in the past. Why do I say so? If 50 years, history teaches me what happens, the second coming of a tragic event, it's always, as they say, farcical. If 50 years after Biafra, people are still trying to actualize it, then just as Chief Obasanjo said, we need to go back to history. But I also take issues with the reasons is adduced for this agitation, particularly the question of ignorance. There is something fundamentally wrong with our nation. And I think the problems are on both sides, for those who push for the agitation of Biafra and those who ridicule the agitation of Biafra. And I don't think we should address it in terms of ridicule or condemnation, but in sense of coming to terms with Biafra. What was Biafra fundamentally? Biafra was a cry for help. People felt they needed a place a home of their own to feel very comfortable. 50 years after, or 46 years after the end of the Civil War, people still do not feel very comfortable about this country called Nigeria. So that's the issue we should be addressing. The question of marginalization, everybody is marginalized in Nigeria, at least apart from the swindlers in the corridors of power. I feel marginalized in this country. I know what I've put in as a Nigerian, and I know what Nigeria has given me in return. So to that extent, I can say I am marginalized. So how do we deal with the issue of marginalization? I think the answer lies in something many of our elders do not want to address, which is the structure of this country. Fundamental, and maybe I'll have time to deal with it. The moment we begin to address the issue of the structure of Nigeria, we are a federal state that is run primarily as a unitary state. Once we do that, I think we'll begin to address some of these issues. Perhaps I should.
Look, I cannot, when I was president, I cannot intervene in what any state government does in its education, with its finances, with its agriculture. I can only compliment. And in education, for instance, when I believe, and I still believe very strongly, that if this country will be really, really strongly moving together, education must be one instrument. And the disparity, the difference we have on education must be corrected, whereby in the southwest we have 79%, in the southeast we have 78%, in the northeast we have 19%. Now that is unacceptable if we really want to build a united country. But I started as military head of state. I came up with UPE. As soon as I left, UPE dried up. I came as elected president with UBE, Universal Basic Education. Instead of 6 years, 9 years. Some government then took me to Supreme Court. Each state will have its own foreign policy. No, all the areas where the state should have their own function. Education, health, agriculture, trade, they have.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. for me, to be honest, the problem is a little bit more fundamental than that. If 50 years after the Civil War, we're still here talking about agitation for regional identities, it means fundamentally we've not built a nation. And there are things that are normally characteristics of nations. A country would have an emotional connection with its citizens through three things. First, they'll be proud to be members of that nation, and that is a question of how it acquits itself, the things that it does, etc., etc. Two, the nation will care for the citizen in the same way that the citizen cares for the nation. So as a Nigerian, if something happened to you, you knew that your state will be there to take care of you, whether it's locally or internationally. That isn't happening, so we're our own local governments. All the things that are fundamental to the responsibilities of a state and the responsiveness of a state are not taking place. We provide our own water, we provide our own healthcare. Now we even provide our own security. These are all the responsibilities of a state. And finally, we've not built a country in which people can aspire to become the best that they are. These are the three things normally that would make someone feel that I belong to a state. Nigeria hasn't done that. And so essentially what it does is that it reduces us to going back to our most basic drives, which is the tribe that I belong to, the state that I come from, my ethnic origin. And unfortunately for us, what this does is that the one thing that unites us, we can't fight it, which is a thieving, greedy, ruling elite who have no interest at all in building a nation, because the minute they do, then basically they're out of business. And so these divisions continue to be exacerbated by these particular things that are taking place. That is my take.
I fundamentally disagree with the assertion that Nigeria is constitutionally indissoluble. Because I think that what we have learned is that no place in the world, no nation, no country is indissoluble. And we've seen agitations only last year, or the year before in Scotland. Even in the US, we had a whole debate over the Confederate flag more than 200 years after the Civil War. And also the idea that Biafra is dead. I also think that we named it was the Bible of Biafra. After the war, we changed the name. The state, Biafra as a nation may be dead, but the idea behind it will never die. And in another 200 years from now, we will still, I believe, have people talking about this and attempting to debate it. Now, with that as a starting point, I think what we should be doing is first accepting the fact that that idea that the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable, I think is a faulty starting point, because it does not allow us to have the kind of debate and discussion that we need to have. And I think that for a nation that is not used to debate, the only way we can learn to debate is by debating. If we shut down debate and arguments and the contentions that come with it, we will never ever learn how to debate. At the moment, the only way to get the attention of the state is to take up arms. And we have seen it happen in the Niger Delta, we have seen it happen even in the southwest, we have seen it happen in the north. And we need to get to a point where people learn that you can make a point without having to take up arms. The way to start doing that is to open up the discussions. It may be violent when it starts. In another 20, 30 years, hopefully we have learned that, like the Scottish independence debate, where it wasn't about, nobody talked about, picking up guns and all that. I think it is possible. But the starting point is accepting that the idea that the unity of any nation is inviolable. That is a faulty starting point. Even in Belgium, a few years ago, Belgium was without a government for about 10 months because of a desire to split Belgium between the north and the south. So I think that for me, that's where I come to this this conversation.
I want to. Do you believe or do you agree to the proposition that if the Nigerian government were to apologize for these infractions, that some of the agitation would be diffused?
I saw it all. I came back to Nigeria after my studies in Britain, and it appeared Satan was let loose. 1965, I came in here, 66 coup, and thereafter war. And I responded to the call to return to base of your origin. I was in the East. I abandoned my profession as a chartered surveyor and founder of the company called Knight, Frank and Rockley. I had to respond to the war demands, even though I was not trained to fire a gun. But I was appointed to head military intelligence of 11th Division of the Army, headed at Newi, based at Newi, in charge of Onitsha zone.
You are not facing my division.
And what was called the Republic of Benin. So, it was my intelligence, Your Excellency, that stopped. You know what we called you then? Vandals. That's
You are rebel.
with my intelligence, I'm happy to say, stopped the advance of the Nigerian troops into Newi and environs. And we were there and the war ended. So, your question, I saw it all. I came back at the end of the war, and I was settled with 20 pounds, as you said. Yes. You also mentioned about the program and the issue of the Enterprise Promotion Decree, the sale of foreign businesses to Nigeria, when the Southeast or the Eastern region had only 20 pounds to buy the assets, etc., etc. Yes, I saw it all. Now the question is, apology, whether it will diffuse detention. That's the question. My answer is, action speaks louder than words. It's not saying to me, I'm sorry, but by your action, you show that really you are sorry. And what do I mean? I had, purely of my own prompting, to interact, Your Excellency, with the agitators of IPOB, Indigenous Peoples of Biafra and Massaw. I did interact with some of them, and honestly, they said to me, if not that they know me very well, they would have believed that I must have been settled by the federal government by cautioning them to pipe down. That I do not honestly believe that Biafra something coming up on Biafra is the answer to the problem. So my answer to your question is not saying sorry, but doing something that improves the life of the people of Southeast Nigeria. Because I tell you, let's not mince words. If you ask me, there was 3 hours at the end of the war: reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. The question is, was there a reconstruction? You ask me, I tell you no. Even as at 3 days ago, I was going from Oka back to my home at Amici. I pointed to the person sitting in my car, to Adelugufu. It is there right now. There are 2 buildings, one against each other, one brick built, and it was bombed during the war. Those buildings are still like that because the family was completely wiped out. One of them happened to be a colleague of mine in my school at Onitsha Dennis Memorial School. The name is Felix Okongu. The Okongu family completely wiped out. Those buildings are still unbuilt today. Nobody told me that. So I would have thought that there would be, in actual fact, true reconstruction. If you ask me, I'll go further to say, and one occasion, one or 2 occasions I've said so. Southeast, the Eastern region, or Southeast, would require something like Southeast Development Commission to redevelop the Southeast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You see, it depends on where you want to begin from. If you begin from Ogro, you have left everything behind. And there's none of us. Chico Keke has just told the story of what happened to a member of his own family. We can look at what happened to people on either side. And that's why in my statement I said we were all losers. And there's no family that was not in one way or the other affected by the civil war and the crisis. 2 of my own mates who are friends in the military, we joined the military the same day, died. But they go and I don't recover. A very good friend of mine, my best friend in the army, died 2 months ago. And you can go on that way. One of my own officers, Patrick Dick, was just taken from our barrack in Kaduna. One night, we never saw him again. One Major, I saw him on the Niger, on the Asaba end of the Niger, and he went, he never came back. You can go on and go on like that. And in Ogro, nobody is trying to excuse anything. But I have always maintained that in physics, they say action and reactions are equal and opposite. In human interaction, action and reactions are not equal and opposite. Reaction is always heavier or bigger than action. Now, let's go back to where we were. Even before the coup of January 1966, had a problem in the Tiv land. People have forgotten that. We had a problem in the southwest or western Operation Wete. And I have members of my family that was born alive because of election in 1964. Now all those culminated in the military. So some members of the military, young, idealistic, but naive, believing that with one action, with the gun, they can bring unity, they can stop all agitation, and we have seen that it does not work that way. I give it to you. Let's have debate, let's have discussion, let's have conversation, let's have dialogue. But to achieve what? To achieve cohesion? Of course, yes. To remove anomalies? Of course, yes. To make us feel involved? Of course, yes. And I always say this. If in 66 years of our independence, we have not seen any leader that had done good for Nigeria, then God help Nigeria. Then we will never see. If in 66 years of our independence, no good has been done by leaders in Nigeria, then they will never be. There will never be such leader that will do good for Nigeria. So let us watch what we say and what we do and how we say it. Now, let me go to another one.
Referendum?
Now, I'm coming.
The referendum. Should the eastern part of Nigeria be given a chance to go to a referendum?
I don't know what you would want to see, because if you now want to have referendum, will it include Biafra? Will it include Akwa Ibom? Will it include Cross River? Will it include rivers? Now, if you will, if it will, then we will understand. We had, after the election and the problem in TV land and all that, we had a situation where we had a government. It's predominantly a northern dominated government. Overnight, there was a coup that changed that. Overnight. And the attitude, particularly in the northern part of the country, is wait and see what it is all about. And that wait and see attitude persisted until there's a unification decree. People don't remember that. Now, well, whatever you may say about the young officers who carried out the coup, they failed in what they wanted to achieve. What then came in was neither satisfactory to them nor satisfactory to anybody. So at the end of the day, with the unification decree, everything about federal system of government was thrown overboard. And that was the incendiary. That was the incendiary that turned everything started to snowball until the Civil War. Now, you are right, and I have never denied it. Nigeria, I have derived a lot of good from Nigeria. And if for that reason, I will fight for the unity of Nigeria, maybe for me justified. And I have not denied it. But I have also rendered a lot of good for Nigeria. And I'm still rendering. I have shed my blood for this country. I have gone to prison for this country. And it didn't stop there. My own son has shed his blood for this country. And I will not stop there. So, yes, but that doesn't mean that because Nigeria has done good for me. I'm not the only one Nigeria has done good for. The others Nigeria has done good for, they haven't even repaid them. They haven't repaid in any way. They haven't even shown it in any way. If anything, they have shown it in a negative form. And let us take the good thing out of this country. We fought a civil war. We will not be the first to fight it. That civil war was humanely fought. Chief Okeke here, the war was actually ended in ammunition. In the field. And we were hoping ourselves. Now, we fought a civil war. Within 10 years of that civil war, an Igbo man was number 2 citizen in this country. Dr. Alexei Kwebe. It took the Americans more than 8 years before they got to that level, after their civil war. We should appreciate that. I'm not saying that that is the end of the road, but we should appreciate it and say, okay, look, this much we have achieved. Then what more? What more? We fought a civil war. The leader of the secession on the other side was pardoned. Within 13 years of that civil war, he was contesting to be a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he contested. Within 30 years, he was contesting to be the president of Nigeria. Now, these are great things that our country has achieved, and we should not belittle it. Yes, we are not where we should be. I will be the first to admit that. Yes, we have a long way to go. I will be the first to admit that. But we don't get to where we want to get by pulling down. We get to where we want to get by building up. And all I'm asking is that let us build up. Let us build up. Not pulling down. You will get, and you said it, everybody can feel marginalized. Depending on how you look at marginalization.
Yes.
Now, but what is there that you and I can do in our own little way? What can we ask the government to do? As I said in my statement, irrespective of election, how the election, the voting went, the president of Nigeria must see himself as dispensing largesse equitably throughout Nigeria, no matter, and that is even in our constitution. Now we talk about whether Nigeria as an entity is dissoluble or not dissoluble. I won't go into that. I go by what the Constitution says, and if tomorrow you change the Constitution, I will go by it. The Constitution that we have to do, put it clearly. Whether you agree with that or not is a different thing. But until you change that Constitution, that's my own position. And countries will leave, some will go, but I do not want Nigeria as a country to start disappearing in my lifetime.
Thank you.
Listening to you, and I was hoping that you would tell us how those ills can be taken care of by not excluding the Southeast, particularly in the power sharing of Nigeria. When will the Southeast be a president for Nigeria?
Thank you.
Well, let me just answer that. You see, it comes to, again, what I said earlier. When I became elected president, an Igbo woman was made Minister of Finance. An Igbo man was made Governor of Central Bank. So people even came to me and said, well, look, what is out there? and Igbo woman was the Minister of Transport, and so on. And one day some group came to me and said, look, the Civil War is not over yet. I said, what? What happened? They said since the end of the Civil War, no Igbo man had been the Minister of Defense. I tried to explain to them, I said, Minister of Defense is just the administrative head of the Ministry of Defense. What matters is the service chiefs. They are the one. And we have had Igbos in that position. They said, no, I said, all right, this is perception. And at times, perception is bad as reality. Or as good, whichever way you want to look at it. So I decided to take Tom Aguirosi, the son of the first Nigerian GOC in the Nigerian Army. I made him Minister of Defense. Now, does that end the Civil War? Then they came to me and said, yes, now the Civil War is ended. Now, with the agitation that we are having now, yes, there will be no end to agitation. There will be no end to it. But if the agitation is sane, is genuine, and we are debating and talking about it and educating ourselves, I am all for it. Now, let me say something about what you have said. Maybe when we have an Igbo president, I think that's what you are saying. More, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I think two things must be borne in mind by Nigerians. It doesn't matter how large your tribe may be. Your tribe alone cannot make you the president of Nigeria. We must know that. My own tribe, as you know, the Yorubas, are the second largest tribe in Nigeria. They did not vote for me in 1999, and yet I made it to become the president of Nigeria. That proves that even if your tribe does not vote for you, and Nigeria wants you to be there, you will be there. Now, if your tribe votes for you, and Nigeria doesn't want you to be there, you will not be there. So if we understand that, the way we play the politics, so that what you want may happen will be the way it should go. Who are we to say that, yes, we are here? As I said. So my own position is, once we know this, then we must work towards it. And if you work towards it, it will happen. I don't believe that Nigerians will only listen to you when you take arms. Somebody said that. I don't believe that. And nobody should threaten any government. I mean that. My own experience, both my military training and in government, makes that clear. We can achieve a lot through dialogue, through conversation, through debate, and listening to ourselves and making that we do not treat ourselves with levity.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My question has to do with to do with marginalization, and I'd like to ask Mr. Okiko. You mentioned something about the fact that the Southeast was being marginalized, etc. Do you think that it's a political issue? And the reason why I ask that question is because I know that during the last administration, the Southeast had a lot of requests that they made, and they were obliged because they voted for the president. I was privy to some of the meetings when they would go with a wish list and ask for all sorts, and they got granted. And that's normal. And what do you think?
Thank you.
I first of all want to say that the former president, they cannot compare the welfare crisis with the two programs of individual. One was from my knowledge of the Civil War, I want to believe that the Aburi meeting, surprised me that Aburi here, was the point, was where we have solved the crisis. Now, Mr. President, former President, don't you think that we can revisit Aburi to solve this issue of the Biafra Agitation? Thank you very much.
My name is Ozawa Izura. I'm a lawyer and I'm a mother of 5 Nigerians. My question, Your Excellency, is considering that this is one of 3 parts of public discussion, do you think there's any point in having another one, considering your unshaking position today? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chief.
Well, let me answer that quickly. I was not the one who scheduled 3 meetings. Now, you see, because that's what goes so wrong in Nigeria. I wasn't the one. This is my own meeting. Now, the other 2, I don't know who scheduled it. Please, I'm entitled to my belief and my own position. My belief and my position is that I have total belief in the unity of Nigeria. You may have your own. Now, with your 5 children, whether you want to live in 5 parts of Nigeria, that will be 5 different countries, that's a different thing. I have said, when I was going to contest election as president, I visited Kano, and Sanusi Dangata said to me, you know my ambition? I said, no, I don't. My ambition is that I do not want to get visa to go to Enugu. I said, Alaji, I am going into this because I do not want to look for visa to go to Kano, to go to Maiduguri, to go to Calabar, to go to Enugu, to go to Sokoto. Now, that is my own position. If your own position is different, that's a different issue. So if they call more meetings and you want to attend, I believe you will be welcome. But this one of my own that you have attended, you will listen to me.
Your Excellency, my name is Chief Dick Sakobo. I'm a civil operator. Served in your office as a signal operator. I left with you to receive the Biafra surrender as a signal operator. Today, I represent a community called Bregan in the South-South zone by the Atlantic Ocean. I want to ask, as a civil war veteran who fought for the unity of this country, and someone who comes from a place called Bregan, right inside the deep of the ocean. Sometimes we don't even think that we are part of this country because we are most times swallowed up by the ocean and we are not reported. Nobody knows. The question I really want to ask is, if you bring our currency, one of our currency, because the things that unites us, one, is the currency. The currency, if you bring out the 50 Naira currency, you will see that there is 3 major tribes, which is the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Igbos. unify us? Will that make me and a German right in the deep of the ocean in Nigeria? Will that not make me to agitate that I am not part of this country?
Thank you. Well, let me again deal with that quickly. There are about 350 languages. If you will have to put all those on our currency, then our currency will be as wide as this one. Now, I know one country has about 12 or 14 languages in their currency, and that is India. But they have more than 200 languages. The idea is that if you put Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, you will cover substantial. You won't cover all Nigeria. You will cover substantial part of Nigeria with English, Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. And that is what it is. It's not that the other languages are not recognized, because in our educational system, you start with mother tongue in teaching children in the primary school. That is the recognition of the languages, whichever language in Nigeria. It's not disregard for your language, it's the fact that you can only accommodate not all, but some, and we take the key ones to be accommodated.
Thank you. So let's take responses and then go for more questions.
Yeah, just to speak to the last speaker, the symbolism of putting people on currencies, for example, these are some of the ways that nation building occurs. And I actually believe that that sort of symbolism is important for inclusion. It's important that everybody who's a part of Nigeria, we find a way to make them feel like they're part of Nigeria. So while the currency, for example, might not be practical to put all the tribes, there are a whole lot of other things I believe Nigeria should be doing. And I think we suffer in this country from missed opportunities. Today is an example, okay? Today is important because it's the anniversary of the coup, but it's also the anniversary of the end of the Civil War. We don't have a national event where this government, for example, here in Abuja, seizes the opportunity to bring people from all across the country and does an event that promotes Nigeria as a nation. Instead, what we have are individual events marking some of these events. In Kaduna, we have something for Sir Ahmadu Bello. And I can't begrudge the people of the North trying to do a memorial for the man that died for them. But wouldn't it have been better if we did a national memorial so that everybody is here in Abuja celebrating Okoji Igbo? That is happening in Lagos later this evening. And for me, these are the sort of things that our governments fail to do. We are not building a country. You know, we're still exacerbating the differences. And I dare say, I believe it is deliberate. Because the minute Nigerians remember and recognize that the enemy is at the center in Abuja and in state government houses all over Nigeria, the game is over. So it is better for them to allow us to be fighting each other, to be talking about Hausa, Fulani, people. As long as we do that, we can't come together and get them to start doing the job. It's not simple.
Thank you. Let me respond to two of the questions and then we'll go to the audience. First of all, I didn't expect to be any questions. I thought I'd be the one asking questions. But the question on marginalization, if you ask me sincerely, I believe that all Nigerians are marginalized. I believe that the marginalization we see in the Southeast, which is real, is also real in the Northeast and has resulted in Boko Haram. I believe that the Niger Delta is significantly marginalized. I believe that the Middle Belt, which the crisis hasn't yet taken up, but will, and when it does, will consume Nigeria, is significantly marginalized. So, again, I think we need to go back and interrogate how we are set up and what are the root causes of this marginalization and how do we solve them. Number two question was on the three-part series. The event, this being the first, is put together by next year and not by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. This is the first in 3 series, in a 3-part series, and we'll have the other 2. There's a question on symbolism and the people on the currency. For a nation that has such lines of divide, if I were to advise, I would say do not put any of the ethnic groups on the currency. Because in fact, if you really want to put someone on the currency, you need to put an German on the currency, because they are all living on their back. It is the oil that comes out of their land, that destroys their land, that gives us an opportunity to even sit in this room and have a conversation. So if anyone should be on the currency, it should be an German. But for me, put nobody on the currency.
Okay, quickly, let me just add to the issue of symbolism for the currency. But that's also challenges us that we do not have a nation. That we do not have national heroes. Tell me, is there anybody in this Nigeria today that you would mention, and that person, he or she, would have, say, 40–50% support across board, across Nigeria? You hardly find. So how do you talk about the nation? And it goes back to the questions or the issue I raised at the beginning of this conversation, that we were given a nation, we were given a country by the colonialists. They departed and we all went to sleep. There was not an effort, no attempt to build a nation out of what was handed. We were complacent, we were comfortable with what happened, and all of it, including Biafra and subsequent agitation. So moving forward, and I like Chief Obasanjo's passion and candor when he talks about Nigeria, and he talked about building up Nigeria. The next stage of all is, how do we build up Nigeria? And that's the discussion I think we ought to have now, which has to do about the nature of our federation.
Thank you.
My name is Mr. Obin Gabriel. I represent the Eastern Nigeria Administrative Group. My question goes to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. In your response to Mr. Onuma's proposal for restructuring, you did say that the current structure we have is more like a very good structure. I went as far as saying that during your tenure as president, you never had any cause to interfere in the operations of state governments. Sir, I want you to clarify to us. And second question is this. Tinubu went to court to challenge Tinubu. Local government issues as well. Yeah, but the second question is from your experience having around a long time, to what extent was the 3 R's implemented after the Civil War? And the last question is, you think it's fair enough for the government at that time to have initiated a policy where every single Igbo man was handed 20 pounds, irrespective of how much he got in hand? Thank you.
Your Excellency, my name is Bashir. In every sense of objectivity, I just want to say that education is the foundation for which a nation is built. And now in your statement, you said earlier that the educational standards, so to say, in the north is about 19%, and in another part of the country about 70%. Now my question is, how come you also said that our government is run by mostly Northerners? I mean, if the people are so educated in the other parts of the country, why don't we have more of the educated people as government officials? Please can you clarify why this normal exists? Thank you.
Your Excellency, members of the High Table, ladies and gentlemen. Good somebody had answered for President Obasanjo when Chief Onuma said Nigeria had been good to him. I want somebody to answer for. Because Nigeria has been good to all of us. Look at us here in a privileged place. When hundreds and maybe 60 or 70 million Nigerians are suffering. President Obasanjo has shared his bed for Nigeria. He had talked when nobody talked. He supports Nigeria. He fought for President Jonathan when most of the country was against him. So he fought General Abacha when nobody could. Therefore, we should appreciate that. But what is more important for me is, can we not use this democratic setting and address issues like the Biafra issues? Why can't all Nigerians come together and sit and compromise and agree on something that will address the agitations of the Biafrans? We can see how they do it in the National Assembly today. They pick their leaders with all Nigerians participating in that election. We are here, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, Ijo, whatever tribes, why can't we see our problems and try and solve them? Not as elites, but as Nigerians, not as Yorubas and Igbos or Muslims and Christians or Northerners and Southerners, but first as Nigerians, because only very few of us are benefiting from the great resources of Nigeria. Is it not possible to do that, sir? Thank you.
All protocols observed. Thank you. A comment to a question. One is about education. I know that we have actually written editorial on the issue of history. And I tie that to human development. Where you have a very poor education system, I don't know where would derail. I'm a product of what is today called the military schools. I went to an FGGC. Even though it's now located in present day Katsina State. In my class of 6th there were only 8 core Northerns. In my class of 6th there were only 8 core Northerns. When I said 6th that was like about 3 amps, because the entire school was just about 300 and something in population. But the question, and I grew up in a situation where my best friends, my closest friends, my childhood friends are actually from the other part of the country. Because that's what I grew up with, and we keep in touch. The question now is, why is it that under each and each successive government, why did we derail from that idea of unifying the youth? Unifying the youth. Because we're not doing that. Now you find parents that do every information of this international, this British, American, British, they don't teach you history, they don't teach you Nigerianness, they don't teach you what Nigeria is. You need an education system that tells you what Nigeria is, how Nigeria should be, why you are in Nigeria, and why you must remain in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll respond to those and then take another set of questions.
Why did Tinubu take me to court? In our constitution, Nigeria is described by local governments. And it's an annex to our constitution. You will see the local governments that make up Nigeria. Tinubu then decided to create more local government. And if you decide to create more local government than the one in the constitution, it will mean you have to amend the constitution, because the number of local governments must be as in the constitution. So when he did that and said, give money due to local government to me so that I will distribute it among, I think, 52 or 56 local governments, I said, no, that will not be constitutional. And I took the oath to defend the constitution. So he decided to go to court. He went to court. He is not the only one who went to court. A number of others went to court. And depending, for instance, I think in Igbo State, one senator took us to court. And when the court said the PDP should put him on, well, the court can advise in that case, because the PDP as a party is the one who decides which candidate to be put on. So we can say we have no candidate. We have no candidate. And we didn't field any candidate. because we did not want to go against the call. How much did the 3 hours achieve? The 3 hours are I think the first of all is reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. Reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. The slogan for the Nigerian Civil War is no victor, no vanquish. And we lived up to that, even in the field. We had a war where we had umpires. We had international observers, and they went anywhere. And at the end of the day, they gave the federal troops a clean bill of health. So, reconciliation, and that made reconciliation easy. At the end of the war, as I said earlier on, well, on the other side, officers who are trained together, we have worked together, we have lived together. The day the war ended, David Ogunlewe was sent to be looking for me. David and I lived next door neighbor in the 5th Battalion in Kaduna. And when he eventually found me, I have already reached the place. And I found that the shoe he was wearing had torn. Somebody was going with me and telling me, give me your shoe. We had reconciliation that way. Rehabilitation. There was a national rehabilitation commission. There was, people have forgotten that. There was a national rehabilitation commission. And I believe to a large extent, it did what it could. Reconstruction, roads were reconstructed, bridges were reconstructed. The longest bridge then from the Asabanisha bridge, it was blown up. We reconstructed it up. One end of the Onitsha end of it was blown up. We immediately put the bridge and later on roads were reconstructed, other bridges were reconstructed. Even the refinery was reconstructed. And the story about the refinery was that when those who prepared the refinery, when they were told to repeat what they had was in on the lighter note, we had to get Gawan and Odu. Well, the educated should only be in government. If you go by that, then we will not have federal character. We will not have everything. Even within the disparity, there are still people in the Northeast. I was talking of Northeast. There are still people in the Northeast who will be in government and will be able to serve very well in government. Human development, unifying the youth. Yes, we even started with a new national anthem and a pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country. It's all part of way to unify our youth, to move us together. Now, for me, it's not that we don't have good ideas. Part of our problem is lack of continuity in the implementation of good ideas that we have.
Okay, moving forward, I think it's important that we leave the issue of Biafra behind, and with all due respect, we move forward. Somebody asked about the issue of restructuring. I think the fault is in us. It's so convenient for us to hide under the Constitution, and you ask yourself, the Constitution of the Federal Republic. For me, from my own research as a student of history, as a journalist, that Constitution is nothing but a military decree writ large, essentially. So we need to go back to the basics. We need to have a Constitution of we the people that addresses, and Chief Obasanjo talked about local government. Nigeria is the only country in the world, I think there are about 24, 25 countries that practice the federal system of government, apart from, I think, Austria, that has a unitary police force. Nigeria is perhaps the only country in the world where local governments are legislated. Who does that in a federation? What are the federating units? So why won't we continue to have problems? I think these are some of the issues we need to address.
So something about the issue of nationalization. 52%, according to the way that the oil revenues are shared, 52% goes to the center in Abuja. It's a lot, it should be a lot less. That's another conversation. But 48%, which is almost half, goes to states and local governments. And somehow we have to expand the conversation about development and nationalization, move it from Abuja down to the states and the local governments. Now, we've talked a lot about why, okay, history is not being taught in our schools. I'm not sure it's the Ministry of Education in Abuja that should be making, for example, in the Southeast. Is there any state in the Southeast where Biafra, the Civil War is taught in schools? I don't think so. So whose fault is that? Abuja or the states? So, yeah, but states have we know how Nigeria works. Nobody can stop you from teaching in your schools. People, nobody can stop you from doing these things. When we want to make things happen. I know, so we can speak theoretically about that.
The point is clear that the states still have a lot they can do.
There's a lot of leeway with these things. So it's not just in education. So my point is just that we need to be able to expand this conversation, because most people will never have an encounter with Abuja. But we will all have encounters with our state capitals and our local governments. And we need to find a way to make our states and local governments account for. And I also imagine that this argument that states make about being allowed to be in charge of, I don't think that deep down governors mean it. Because as soon as we get into that system where we begin to look at our states, it's going to be, the governors are going to face a lot of pressure and scrutiny. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one last question, because we have to close in another 5 minutes.
I stand on the existing protocol. The problem of Nigeria is almost solved. Because I'm not the we. That personal will is not much. Truth is not much. Biafra case or agitation, all of us are known to us. And the solutions, restructure Nigeria, and problem solved. And the National Conference report has already given us a solution. Let's implement a report, and Nigeria will be good. Nobody likes to get Nigeria.
Thank you.
And that is my question. How do we, why can't we apply, solve this Nigerian problem by using of national conference?
Thank you.
Well, I will have to come in at this point. I'm very, very sorry, because I have another very important meeting that I have to attend in Lagos. And I think the time of that meeting for 2 o'clock in the hope that we will finish here by 12. I'm very, very sorry. I'm the chairman of that meeting there, and I will. You can go on if you want, but you will have to excuse me.
Sir, please listen to me.
No, please.
Sir, please. I'm the Moma, retired. I'm glad to be here, and particularly that my boss is here. Sir, when somebody was talking of you don't have heroes, I felt touched and I must talk because you're one of my heroes. Nigeria must learn to give kudos to their leaders. We are lucky we have a country that could become a power in Africa, if not in the world. I was enthused to see President Obama yesterday talking that America is the greatest nation on earth. Yeah. So, and I think the issue I want to raise here is that the problem of Nigeria is as simple as ABCD. It's not a matter of marginalization. We talked about so many things here today. But I believe that the fundamentals that some of us have said ought to be done. And these fundamentals, I can group them into what I call PRST. We haven't looked at issues like population explosion. There is no way you can restructure Nigeria. I'm asking if we look at these fundamentals, rather than growing on issues like marginalization and others, can't we solve the problem? And these fundamentals are like population explosion. Secondly, restructuring the polity. Thirdly, secular system of the country must be respected. And fourthly, the federal character issue. If these are done, they find that the talking about Biafra, the youths are not happy that they cannot exercise their potentials.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Last word from Chief Obasanjo and we'll bring it to you.
Well, Patrick, I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody on the panel. But for me, it appears that we more or less reach a consensus. I believe the first point is that none of us on this panel believe that Biafra has secession from Nigeria or breaking Nigeria up is the option. Alright? So that I believe is so the other things, whether you now see Biafra as an ideology or as an ideal or as a point or as a platform or whatever, I think we can talk about that tomorrow. Now, my brother here talking about only in Nigeria we have a central police. Again, it's lack of history. We started with native authority police and the atrocities that those police really perpetrated in this country. You will not believe it. They will kill people and put behind your house. And they will arrest you for the day. And they are locked up. They will be, now it is, I believe, and then you didn't get it well, there's a country that I was in recently, Colombia. They still have, and they are some form of federation, and they still have central police. They are actually debating whether they should go back. They are not like us. Now the other point just mentioned is whether we have heroes or we don't have heroes. I believe, this is my view, that one of the misfortunes of Nigeria was that at independence we had 3 countries in one, not one country, and we did not have one leader. We have 3 leaders, and that the vestiges of that is still without tomorrow. Now, countries like Cote d'Ivoire, they have food money, Senegal, He was a Christian in a predominantly Muslim country. He was acclaimed leader. Yarere, he was acclaimed leader. Kaunda was acclaimed leader. Jomo Kenyatta was acclaimed leader. Here was, if you want to talk about Nigerian leaders, you will talk about four. You will talk about Dr. Nandi Azikiwe. You will talk about Tafawa Balewa. You will talk about Awolowo, and you talk about Saddam. That is part of our problem. That is still agitating us today. And I believe we must move away from that. And I repeat what I said earlier on. Let us find out what is good in us. And there are a lot of good things in us in this country. And if we say there is no good enough, then who will then say there is good enough? The Americans. And you quoted, and Obama said, America is the greatest country in the world. Then who are you to say it's not? Who are you? I see no reason why Nigeria should not be the greatest black race country in the world. And that is what God has given to us. And we must not give it away. Thank you very much.
Message, I have to take you on two issues. One, you made a statement to say that the international community said the war was fought according to the rules. Yeah. No But you may remember there was a time that at one time during the war, one God Shepherd came. God Shepherd was, I think, a member of the House of Lords. Instead, came to Nigeria, and a corridor was made for him to come to Biafra, to Prague. He met Ojukwu, took him around, showed him schools that were bombed, markets that were bombed, and churches that were bombed, and was shouting on genocide, taking program, genocide. But information came to us that as soon as a corridor was opened for him, he went back to Lagos, met with General Lawan, and came to be asked by the press about genocide. He said there was no genocide. Then this led to early morning broadcast by Ojukwu, who said, fellow Biafrans, you have heard that one Lord Shepherd came to visit Nigeria and Biafra. When he came to Biafra, I showed him places that were bombed. He had now gone to Nigeria and said there was no genocide. Fellow Biafrans. Fellow Biafrans, I'm quoting. Fellow Biafrans, this Lord cannot be our shepherd. Number two, you are running into problem with the chairman of the National Population Commission when you said Yoruba is second largest tribe in Nigeria. You have a problem with that.
I do. That is the report of the 2006 population census, and that is not controversial. All right?
All right, thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me say to you. People ask me, what is the secret of your friendship with this man? Let me say it clear. Nigeria has, to my mind, I have not seen one person who can be so blunt as this man. He says that it may hurt you when he tells you he's siding with another, but the fact remains that this is one man that says that this, and I prefer that. Now, to my fellow people from South East, let them think about it. People said to me, to my hearing, that people have a proverb that when a woman marries two husbands, then he will know the one that is a better husband. Let's not make anything about it. The Southeasterners, in spite of Biafra agitation, they said, in spite of Biafra agitation, which runs contrary to your own belief and your own views about Biafra, they said that during your presidency, since your presidency, the Southeast have never had it so good. It is a fact that it is not the constitutional positions that we have, you must give to us, that matters, but what is unconstitutional. Unconstitutionally, general, it was in spite of agitation for Biafra, they say thank you to what you have done. And let me speak. Let me say it. Agitation for Biafra is not agitation for Biafran state. Because me, I do not support a Biafran state. I believe the Igbos, the Southeast, a state as small as Biafra is too small for the Southeast. The Igbos are very, very vibrant. They need a macrocosm, not microcosm, Biafra. Thank you very much.